Karen, you got like Karen Weck.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Are you seeing things? All right, comes me. Okay.
Everything just takes.
Okay. Gotcha. Everybody ready? Yep. All right. Good evening and welcome to the June 10th, 2013 regular meeting of the Waterloo Community School District Board of Education. I hereby call the meeting to order. And initially, two board members, Andrew Sparks and Shanley McNally, are traveling. They're out of town right now and unable to join us. Now, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Now please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I'll read the school district's mission statement. The Waterloo Schools community commits to a comprehensive system of education and support to assure that each and every student will graduate prepared for college, career, and citizenship, as evidenced by continuing education, pursuing a career path, and contributing to a community. The first item on our agenda for action is a public hearing. It is on Exhibit A on page 1 of our board packet, and it'll also be dealt with in Exhibit K for approval. But at this time, we'll have the public hearing. It's for the Hoover Middle School Commons and Kitchen Renovation Project. And notice of this item was published in the Waterloo Courier. I hereby declare the public hearing to be open. And then for some information about it, it's about plans for expansion and, I guess, remodeling of the Hoover Middle School cafeteria, common space kind of by the auditorium along, I guess, parallel to West Park Lane. Is that correct?
Adding
With
a cafeteria,
Yes.
cafeteria on the north.
Yes. Okay, on the north side. Yes.
Right.
Thank you. And at this time, I would invite anybody who wishes to address the board or speak publicly about this item to please step forward. All right. And seeing no one, and entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Okay. And all those in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried, and the public hearing is closed. Again, it'll be later in our agenda, and this is just to approve the plans and start the planning process on that. The next item on our agenda, and we've got a couple of grants that we are being asked to receive, some very good items, and we've got Crystal Buzza and Angela Francis here in the district. Ask them to come forward, but at this time get the motion on the table for the first item as Exhibit B on page 3 of our board packet. and this is for the governor's STEM scale-up programs. It's a grant for our elementary schools. And the motion is that the Board of Directors accept and acknowledge a gift in the amount of $11,870 from the governor's STEM scale-up programs for the district-wide implementation of a World in Motion curriculum.
So moved.
Thank you. It's been moved. Second. Moved and seconded. And Angela Francis, who's our district STEM coordinator, if you could give us some background on this, please.
Absolutely. So we applied for 5 STEM scale-up grants, and this is the one that we received. And it's for a district-wide curriculum that we'd like to implement at the elementary level, specifically in 3rd grade is the targeted grade we're looking at. And the implementation plan is by using the district's ELP teachers as our leads and myself. So all of the ELP teachers and myself will attend a professional development provided by A World in Motion. And we will then go into the 3rd grade classrooms and teach the teachers along with the students. So we'll be doing the actual implementation, and then hopefully at that time teachers will sign on board and take it over from there. So A World in Motion is a program that's been around for approximately 20 years. It's a pretty well-known program where students are asked to tackle a design challenge. And for example, at the 3rd grade level, one of the challenges is called Rolling Things. And the students have a literacy component where they read a story. And in the challenge, students will explore the story, The Three Little Pigs Sledding Adventure, during which they will study toy cars and car performance. Launching the cars from ramps, the students investigate the effects of different ramp heights and car weights and the effects those have on distance traveled, measuring and recording the data that they've gathered through variable testing. And there are 4 different challenges like this, so that is just one of the 4 that we'll learn about and be able to implement in all of our elementary schools.
And the plan is to start that in the fall and have that everything ready to go?
Correct. As soon as
This
the
school year.
professional development is offered,
Okay.
the ELP teachers and I will meet and decide the best way to implement this, what time of the year we're actually going to implement. So,
Great.
yeah.
Any further questions or discussion?
Is this derived from or sponsored by SAE? by any
Correct.
means?
The
Okay.
Society for Automotive Engineers.
Yeah, we've had that program for, as you say, a long time.
No, it sounds great. Thank you for taking the initiative to apply for the grants as well.
Absolutely.
Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the chair votes aye. Motion carried. The next item on our agenda is Exhibit C on page 4, and this is for another acceptance of a gift. This is for a gift for Kittrell Elementary, a grant from the CenturyLink Foundation, and the recommended motion is that the Board of Directors accept and acknowledge a gift in the amount of $4,955 from the CenturyLink Foundation for the Kittrell Elementary Active Table Project.
So moved.
Thank you. And
Second.
second? Okay. And Angela, if we could hear from you again on this item.
Sure. So this is a grant that was written by myself and an ELP teacher from Kittrell, and she was interested in getting an active table for the Kittrell building. The district had test piloted an active table, and all of the ELP teachers had access to it for a certain period of time this past year. And she really liked it and thought that the building could come up with a solid plan so that each grade level team would have a certain number of weeks to plan a project using the active table. So we came across this opportunity to write this grant and went forward with it. And if you're not familiar with an active table, it comes from the Promethean Company. So it's basically a 46-inch TV that's on a cart, a rolling cart, so it can be moved around easily from classroom to classroom. And it can function as kind of like a large iPad with apps, a lot of educational games and different programs that function with touch and move. Or it can function on a regular Windows platform, like a big computer on wheels, basically. So the students work collaboratively. There can be 6 students around the table, and each grade level team has a different use for the project. For example, in 4th grade, the students have planned to do a newspaper project. So instead of all the classroom full of students working on separate computers, 6 students at a time can be working on one computer collaboratively, and they have to agree to compile a newspaper project together. It's a consensus-based activity. If one student doesn't agree, the project doesn't move forward. It's set up that way. So it's a really interesting piece of technology, and like I said, every grade level has decided on a specific app or a specific use for it, including special needs students, the ELP program, the music program, the art program. So we've laid out a pretty good plan for Kittrell to have that active table next year.
It's like a TV, but it's laid flat.
Right. It's
okay.
like a flat screen TV that
Okay.
is large, 46 inches.
tabletop.
Tabletop.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
That you touch and move.
Okay.
Yep.
That sounds interesting. Yeah. Any questions or discussion? Okay. Angela, thank you again for your work on this grant as well. So.
Thank you.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the chair votes aye. Motion carried. Thanks again. All right, the next item on our agenda is information from individuals and delegations. And before I read the card, this is a time where anybody who wishes to address the board can speak. And I will read a card if there's anybody that would like to, but we're in the summer and our audience is pretty thin, it looks like. So anybody's welcome to speak, but nobody looks like they want to. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a consent agenda. And tonight we have a number of items on the consent agenda. And these items consist of the minutes of the May 13th regular school board meeting and the May 31st special school board meeting, which was regarding some facilities matters. Also, personnel appointments and adjustments. Next, bills due and payable between board meetings. Next, we have a Hy-Vee school garden donation, which is for gardening equipment and supplies for our school gardens. Next, we have the school nursing agreement for 2013-2014 school year with the Blackhawk County Health Department. And next, we have the adoption of purchase of calculators for the middle school math department, some Texas Instrument calculators for $109,000. Then we have a textbook adoption for the high school physical education department for $29,000. And finally, it's approval of the approval to proceed with the planning for the Hoover Middle School Commons and Kitchen project approval, for which we had the public hearing, and it's the notice to proceed to bidders for that item. So with that, that's our consent agenda. Are there any items board members wish to be removed from the consent agenda?
Item F, Foxtrot.
Item F, okay, and that's bills due and payable between board meetings. Okay. Any other items? All right, and we've got Bruce Meisinger here from the Blackhawk County Health Department. We appreciate you being here, but we also, if you'd like to speak, we would be more than happy. But if you, oh, okay, fair enough. Well, thank you, and that's a positive. I think everything's been going well. So, Bruce, to you and your staff, we thank you for all you're doing with the school nurses. So. If there are no other items, I'll ask for approval of the consent agenda with the exception of item F, bills due and payable between board meetings. Okay, it's been moved and seconded?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The chair votes aye, motion carried. That takes us then to Exhibit F on page 13, the bills due and payable. Go ahead.
I move the Board of Education approve bills due and payable and bills paid between board meetings.
Moved and seconded. In discussion. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I thought this might be the proper place to provide a little information. There's a quiz at the end, so make sure you pay attention here as normal. If you look on page 15, there's 2 items to Durham, and then one on page 25 on the handout I put to you. They total $605,000. Total year to date, we're at $4.9 million with Durham. I've been quietly watching this number, and you probably haven't looked at the cumulative number, but I've been quietly watching it. But knowing that it's really not a surprise, and there's things being done to address it. Didn't really point it out till now, but now it's the end of the year. We have pretty much the summary numbers, and I think it's worth at least a short discussion. So the first item is, you can see we've increased dramatically in the total cost. 2011-12 was 4.35 million. 2010-11 was 4.35. There was an 11% increase, or an increase of 480,000 for 211-212. This year we increased an additional 780,000, or 16%. So this is getting to be a pretty big number. Now, like I say, this isn't a total surprise. We've added Flash, we've added a number of extra transportation requirements for good reason. And we also knew the next step there, fortunately, you know, after hearing from First Student in Durham, those of us that were in the contract interviews, we were, quite frankly, a little surprised and a little disappointed when we queried them on what sort of business efficiency, operational efficiency metrics they had. And at first they said, oh yeah, we got all these metrics, and they came back, they gave us the metrics, and they were all safety and service metrics. So when we pinned them down, they said, well, we really don't have those metrics. As a matter of fact, you know, when we bid these projects, they're really interested in safety and service, not too much beyond that. But they said what you're asking for would be wonderful. And I think it was Durham in particular shared that they had had a, you know, an executive meeting of some kind saying this might be one way in the future to differentiate ourselves from the rest of the pack, is if we focus a little more on efficiency. Well, we still weren't convinced of that, so I guess mostly through the facilities committee, but for the last year plus, well, then I suggested a company that I had worked with previously, Camelot, that we might want to consider developing our own busing efficiency, the metrics, the guidance, all that. So we've been working with that, and we've paid, I don't know, 3 invoices maybe to them to help in the development. They're doing it mostly on their own, but we've shared in the cost to some degree. So I think we're fortunate at this point to be in a position to be as far as we are in terms of directly addressing this escalation of cost. Now, the next paragraph down there, the completed stages. This past year we went through conceptual design, and by we I mean it's Waterloo Community Schools has the relationship with Camelot, the developer, because I knew them previously, and as you know, I've been in my soapbox about busing costs for many years, and I've had that concern. So I've volunteered some time to be more or less of a liaison in that space, and share with Camelot what a school district really needs. They have a relationship with the Dubuque metro system, but this is different than a metro transportation system in many respects. So they field tested it with the by pseudobuses. I mean a van equipped with the readers and the student cards and the hotspot and so forth. So they did all that mostly in Galena where they're located. And then this past month, we piloted it on all the buses at Bunger, the 8 regular buses in particular. And so we tracked the buses. The students scanned in and out. It was a little bit of a struggle at first, getting them used to it, but we achieved the 95%, I think, that we needed. You all, except Bernice, went on, and it seemed to work pretty well. And it was accurate. We knew exactly what students were on every bus every day. We could tell which students never rode. We had 6 students, I believe, that were ineligible to ride, that were riding. All those sorts of things that you get to sort out once you know all the data. So then, after that, we went into took that data, now that we knew all the times from point A to point B, and whether there was a stop there or not, transformed that into what would we do if we reconfigured the routes. And again, following the rules, we can't have more than 56 kids on a bus, 2 per seat, and you can't have more than an hour kid time, and the bus has to get back to the original location in time for the next route. So with those restrictions, we went in and basically said, how would we reroute it using the what I call the brain base, the Camelot plan. And this is where you're looking at it, but they've developed all the tools, so once you look at it and say, what if I do this? you can tell that, well, you can't do that because of this. It becomes very interrelated and very complex. You can do it manually and get a good result. It just takes a long time. So the essence of the tools is to make it almost instantaneously, the impact of playing the what-if games. You're kind of moving these dials and finding out. So it's much different in concept than a traditional dump information in and it dumps the routes out, such as both Edulog and Verstran are. So the results of that reconfiguration was the number of buses went from 8 to 5. There were 8 regular route buses at Bunger. It could be done with 5. That's a 37.5% reduction. The total driver hours were reduced from 432, and this is just the AM first tier. In other words, the time from the bus garage through the route to unloading at school. So not repositioning to the next station. So we get kind of apples to apples there. It went from 432 driver hours to 294, and this is based on the actual times as we projected onto the new routes. So that was a 32% reduction there. Then total miles was reduced from 155 to 102. That's a 34% reduction. And the interesting thing there is, even though we went from 8 routes to 5 routes, the total miles per route increased by only 1. So what it says is there was quite a bit of spaghetti routing where they were going from this side to this side, and another bus was going from this side to this side. So they only went 1 more mile, each of the 5 buses, and made all the stops for all the kids that were being picked up by the 8 buses. The average number of eligible students per bus thus increased from 29 to 46. So there's 17 more students, and that involved about 5 extra stops in that mile. So it's like 10-minute add, and most of those buses had plenty. One route we didn't change. It was a very good route to begin with, but the rest of them were changed. So that reduced the total cost, and this does include the fuel cost in there, from $166,000 for the Bunger routes for the year to $106,000. So again, that was a 36% reduction in cost. If we had just planned per the Camelot plan and executed to that plan this past year, no flash is included in this, no activity in either case. This was just pure regular routes. So in extrapolation, just as a matter of perspective then, if that were to, if we were able to achieve that same reduction across the districts, this 605,000 up there that we're approving tonight would be 385, or a difference of about 220. Now, different people can categorize it differently. I have a pretty broad category of waste, so if there's a better way to do it and get the same result, to me, I define that as waste. So to me, that's waste. I know it's not to everybody. And then if you took the total year-to-date expenditures of about $5.61 million for 2012 and 13, and there's just June left. There's summer school. Well, it's not going to be 0. So it's going to be 5.7 or 5.8 million by the end of the year. But it's actually a $2 million difference. So if, and it's a big if, I know you can't extrapolate one school to all schools. I don't imagine the other ones, you have the same opportunity, but I would have never dreamed you'd had the opportunity. But it wasn't selected because it was a poor opportunity. Core selected it, I'm not sure, for other reasons. And we said, okay, fine. We'll go with that school. And by the way, they were very cooperative. We got perfect support. They couldn't have been better at Bunger, nor Durham, nor the drivers for that matter. Everybody really was cooperative. Then the other perspective here is that $2 million, I believe, Michael, I didn't have a chance to check this with that's equivalent to a 3% allowable growth, so we keep talking. So we could get another 3% if we were just able to get the busing cost down by that amount. So, bottom line here is the opportunity to save money in busing, especially through the CAMOUT system and the business rules. And those are a big deal. They're both a big deal, the business rules. What are we going to do with the VTs? All the special permissions for this last year that we gave that were really inside the walk area. Do we continue those? Do we back those out until we see there's room on the bus again? And by the way, my understanding is we actually have a seat for every student, whether they ever show up on the bus or not. So we plan for every eligible student. And in the future, we probably ought to plan for them, but fill the bus clear up to 56 almost, knowing that there's going to be several that don't ride. And then we might even be able to, ask them, if you don't intend to ride, we're going to give your seat or make it available for someone who might move in. So there's just a lot of, there's 1,000 different factors that play into that. That's why it makes it so complex and why you need a tool to really help you when you're doing it. So it's a big deal. I think it's worthy of some passion. I've been accused of being over-passionate about it. I think it's worth some risk. I've been accused of asking the district to take some risks that they're not accustomed to. And some expenditures. And the expenditures that we're looking at, if we wanted to further develop this system, and the routing took a fair amount of time to do on Bugger because not all the tools are there. Again, you're going to get the same result. It's just that it doesn't double check everything yet. So if we wanted to finish that so that we could very quickly route schools, all schools, it's another $50,000 to develop that. And then if we want to equip buses with the tablets and so forth, it's $3,000 a bus. So we're kind of facing an interesting point in time here because someone like myself wants to move ahead as fast as they can because we're looking at this $2 million, even if it's $1 million, want to go after it as aggressively and as fast as we can, take some risks, and so forth. Others are saying, no, slow down. So I guess I'm just interested in what everybody's thoughts here are. How fast do we want to go? How much, what's guidance? What are your thoughts? Is it worth it at all? Maybe we just summarily approve these, and certainly after 1 year, I have to say, Durham, even though I'm very disappointed, I mean, they had the same opportunity last year. We went into it thinking we were going to save money, and we're $780,000 in the hole. But they know they need to improve, and they will improve, I think, on their own to some extent. But from my perspective, it's not going to be anywhere near capturing the total opportunity that's available here. So, but we're at a point in time that if we're really going to get this thing and take advantage of these more efficient routes for some schools or all schools in the fall, we got Cunningham starting up in a month, and again, it's going to take longer than it will in the future. We don't have the tracking data for any of the schools except Bunger right now to use as some guidance. So, and my proposal is, even if we, the optimum, we need to back off adding one bus per school, or I'm thinking if we can get 70% of the theoretical savings in our design, that's probably as far as we can go because we don't have a year's history that we're going to allow us to really nail it to the nets behind in the future. So what's
And let me just say this for the benefit of the other 3 board members that aren't in the facilities committee. Shanley's the other board member. So the 3 of us have been meeting, and Lyle's been working on this really since in earnest for a little over a year, probably, or
well, yeah, but since
Okay.
the first of May,
gotcha.
since
Okay.
the pilot.
Yeah, and then the pilot came in May. So we met Shanley was gone, but we met on Friday with the other members of the Facilities Committee, Cora and Matt O'Brien and Marty, Michael, and Dr. Norris, and talked about it. And then we've got a meeting this Thursday at 9 to discuss the busing as well. So what I think it's kind of coming down to is figuring out what we're looking for as a district. And we kind of discussed it earlier today, that what our goal is to increase efficiency or savings for money, increased customer service, and then finally increased student safety. I think is the third, really, with what Camelot had with they've got those tablets that you saw with the pictures and that sort of thing. So I think those are
yeah.
kind of the three goals. This, whether it's Camelot, and what I understand is it's Versatran. We're already paying for Versatrans through Durham, but it does not offer some of the same things that Camelot could. Are we here? Is Camelot coming?
They will.
Thursday?
They're ready to come and present. I haven't scheduled anything yet, but
Okay, gotcha.
The savings that you note here, is that extrapolated for a whole year then, based on the 1 month? Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha.
so what are you, Sue? You rode the bus. What are your
Right.
thoughts?
I just with your presentation, and I really truly appreciate all the work you've done on this, Lyle. I mean, it's very detailed, and just in riding the bus, your passion has really come out, and so thank you for doing this. Just in looking, just some notes I jotted down. Obviously, one thing we'll never control is gas prices, so that will always be a variable year to year. So we have to allow for that fluctuation anyway. But I was first, when I rode the bus, and you were talking about the three main points, but also what I saw on that was correlating to professionalism to the students, that they swiped a card, because most employers swipe a card, so that it also, like, they're going to their job, they're swiping their card, and they leave their job, they swipe their card and get off. So I sort of related it to that on the bus. I thought the safety factor was excellent with the picture coming out. The thing I'm wondering, as far as the information and, mapping it over to the other routes, I would think Bunger would be considered kind of an outlying route. And so I wouldn't think you'd have as much crossover and miles like with the Kittrell route or the, Lou Henry or Kingsley, the more closer in. I wouldn't think you would have as much of that spaghettiing going on, and there'd be less miles traveled. So I would kind of like to see that, if there'd be any way to check the miles driven and, to see how that really plays out. Because I think Bunger tends to go farther out, and a lot of those inner city schools would have less miles, less travel. But overall, I just think it really improves the whole environment of the busing and the safety, and I was very impressed with it. I guess I would like to see a few more actual numbers based on miles and routes, rather than just using the set Bunger. And I'd like to see, like, the miles on the Kittrell route, and obviously the Orange route would be more outlying also, so the savings would be different there. But I just, it was the first time I'd heard of it in the Camelot program, so something like that, I think it's excellent to track as far as also coming on and off the bus. And I think an expenditure would be warranted like this if we had all of our questions answered. So that'd be my opinion.
And I think that's been discussed, is the possibility of putting this into action in place as kind of a pilot project to basically test it, so it's not theoretical, but that we're actually
Mike, how
see.
about you?
Yeah.
How aggressive would you feel we should?
Well, I guess I am not necessarily ready to push this forward to the whole district. I would think maybe we should try do a test with maybe a couple of elementary schools, just to see any variation in what's going to happen there. And I guess I don't see a problem with moving forward with middle school and high schools. because that would be, again, you're going to have less, I think you're going to have less issues with the older kids than you are with the younger kids. So full force, I'm a little leery because of some of the things that we don't know, but I think it's something that we should move forward with fairly aggressively. I mean, if we can realize $1 million a year, that's a big piece of the budget. Not something
Okay.
to take
And the
lightly.
ridership is probably less at high school and middle school versus the elementary. So we would have a good base to work out the kinks for the younger kids too.
I don't have a problem working out the kinks, it's just that when you understand the economics, it costs the same to develop it, whether it applies to 3 schools or
Right,
all schools, so,
Mhm.
but I think we can capture enough savings if we just did the middle schools, and then, because I think you're right, there may be more opportunity there than the others. I'm not sure about that. Well, so much depends on the business rules. On these elementaries, it's really, how many are we busing that are outside the attendance area? That's the key. You know, who has, it's a special permissions piece. That's a big factor
Well, and I
in
think that inner office from the gentleman in Matt's department kind of alluded to that point, that, we need to be,
Sure.
put the axe down and really
Yeah.
check on the ridership.
So if we targeted the middles and maybe an elementary or two, I think we can save enough to at least break even the first year on the investment. That's my concern. Any project that you can save enough during the fiscal year to pay for itself is much better than those that you sink money
Right.
in.
Yeah.
Are we thinking about piloting an elementary building this coming year so that we can see, because I'm thinking about with the kindergartners who ride the bus
Mm-hmm.
up through 5th grade,
Mhm.
the picture's gonna look a little different. So I think that, you have the data from the middle school,
Mm-hmm.
and we know
Mm-hmm.
what happened and how it worked out. But I think we need to pilot it, at least one elementary building.
Okay. You have any in mind?
Probably, I'm thinking about Kittrell. I don't know why that's coming to my mind, but
I was thinking Kitchell or Kingsley is what I was thinking, because Kingsley has a little bit more.
Could we do,
Well, that may be
Yeah.
up to the building principal.
Yeah.
You're going to want a principal who wants to
my
participate.
first choice would be Orange, in addition to another one, only because it has
Orange has the
12
most.
buses,
Yeah.
yeah.
Has the
that
most
would-
of any building.
and there's more potential for
Well,
savings.
and Orange, you double spaghettiing again, I'm sure.
Well, and I think if we're going to do Orange, we should do another elementary with
I
it.
think
Right.
so too.
That is a
Yes,
smaller delivery
'cause Orange
area,
is
so
not
that we can
typical.
compare those numbers.
Yeah, I think.
Maybe 2 pilots then.
The question this is getting down to from the board level, though, is what we've tried to do is focus and have our goals as to what we want, and we talk with the superintendent about that during the annual evaluation discussion like that. We need to figure out where this fits in, so we're clear to the school district and the administration that this is an important priority to us. Fortunately, the timing's pretty good on that, and that we go through that process in June as well. So
Would
we can be
the
able to hear
district
from Andrea
be
and from
ready
Shanley too.
to move forward with this in the fall, Dr. Norris?
That's it.
What kind of,
Well, I
what
wasn't-
needs to be done in order to get this kicked off in the fall?
I wasn't aware this was on the agenda this evening, so we don't have
Yeah,
a
we're not. And that, to
formal
be clear, we're not on the
presentation
agenda.
ready for you.
We
I've
haven't
got,
heard from Camelot yet.
we do have a meeting Thursday, and if we could reserve judgment until Thursday.
Sure. I was
Yeah.
just curious if you had.
And I think all of us, if we can indeed save money, that is the goal of all of us up
Yeah.
there. So, I mean.
And some of it, though, too, the good thing about this is it's figuring out there are some things that can be done that it seems like everybody agrees on that need to be changed just for policy, and other things kind of cleaned up. The non-technology stuff that we can fix, and so all that's good. my thought is this is probably a continuous process. What I'm saying about the board is we just need to be clear as a board as to kind of what our goals are from the start so that everybody's kind of on the same page and working towards that. So we're not asking the superintendent or the administration to look at athletics, which we've talked about for years and are doing right now, the high school task force. And then the other things just as where kind of this fits in along with,
Well, I think the investment
Those
up
other
front
items,
is
yeah.
going to be semi-substantial, but the savings, the potential for
Yeah.
savings farly
Mhm.
outweighs that by a
Mhm.
great.
And then
great
you
amount.
also factor in the time, and you also factor in, there's always that balance with busing, and that if it's just cutting the costs or reducing the routes, you can save money, you're gonna have less kids go to school, but we need kids in school to teach them. Now and that hits what the school district's supposed to do, is teach reading and writing and arithmetic, so to speak. But
I
Yeah.
guess I would recommend if the board wants to make transportation decisions from the board table, we have a workshop.
Mhm.
And we could have Lyle present all of his findings, and we could review some of the administration's
Mhm.
findings, and then you all could
Oh.
talk about it.
Yeah.
I think you need to hear, if you're gonna make this decision, I think you need
Yeah,
to hear
and that's it.
everything.
This isn't on the agenda for us tonight, but yeah.
Would the, some of the main business rules be, that you're recommending, be, I think that'd be good to discuss at that meeting. In other words, start from the very basic one. Are we gonna change the 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile rule? Start from the top on down saying, no, not gonna do that, all right. Then
Build
you,
a system off of that.
the system ultimately, and what about the VTs and what about the, the homeless, I guess yeah, we've got
And some of
some
it's figuring out, okay, what are the
legal
laws, what are the requirements that we have.
but I think we're pretty service oriented as a district in terms of
Yeah,
busing.
and I don't know where we stand. There's a lot of information that we need to sit down and get. This is obviously a long process as to what are the requirements and the rules and that sort of thing. So, what other districts are doing, what they've done as well. So,
And Michael, back on page
Yeah.
18, I was just wondering, there again is 5 checks with 0 payout. And these are like
good
to
question. Yeah.
Public Employees Credit Union, Wellmark, Madison National Life. On page 18,
These are checks that are automatically produced when we run a payroll, and this was an extra payroll, and
so
the
nothing
box
was-
wasn't checked to say don't produce a zero
Okay,
check. So
got it,
Oh,
okay.
We were
that's
very
fine.
much aware of it, and I was made aware of it when it happened.
So they didn't get sent out, they just got
Yeah.
printed, okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Any other questions or discussions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the bills due and payable. Or, I'm sorry, we got the motion on the table. If you're ready to vote on the motion for bills due and payable, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. That takes us to Exhibit L on page 43. That is the next action item on our agenda. It is for the contract for food supplies, warewashing, and small equipment for the 2013-2014 school year with the Iowa Association for Educational Purchasing. And this is something.
It's a routine matter.
Routine
we do.
matter we do. It's through
every
the area
summer.
education agencies. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the Food Service Department and approve the agreement between the Iowa Association of Educational Purchasing of food for the 2013-2014 school year.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. And Dr. Norris, is there,
Well, the
you
essence
aware of
of it
anything
is,
different
it's
this
a
year?
huge bulk buying
Okay.
service that the AEAs offer. They seek bids, competitive bids.
as a
and-
consortium? Yep.
As a consortium, and then every school district orders what they need or what they want off those bulk bids, and there are, it's much better pricing than we could get just independently.
Gotcha. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay, and the chair votes aye, motion carried. The next item on our agenda is the renewal of the agreement for technology services sharing with the City of Waterloo. This was new last year, and it put Matt O'Brien in a different role, or I guess added to the roles that he has, working with the city. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve and sign the memorandum of agreement to continue to provide technology leadership, network services, and supplemental technology support services to the City of Waterloo. Thank you. And second?
Second.
Okay. And Matt, if you could just give us a brief summary of this agreement.
Sure.
There may be a few minor changes, kind of tweaks to the
Sure,
original
yes. As you
contract.
mentioned, this
Okay.
is a continuation of the agreement that the board entered into last April to provide the services mentioned to the City of Waterloo in exchange for the payment, which is mentioned in the agreement. Really, the only significant change is we did negotiate with the city, and the amount they're paying us as part of the agreement is increased to $86,000, which is about an 8.2% increase from the original agreement amount. Otherwise, there were just some very minor changes in language just to try to just have the agreement mirror reality, so to speak, as far as the services that were actually being provided. Council did approve this at their council meeting last Monday, so this would be the final step to having that go on for another year.
Well, it seems like everything's been going very, very well from our perspective. It seems like a great thing.
In your
Yeah.
opinion, Matt, how do you feel it's working, the quality in this?
The mayor is ecstatic, so I'll just tell you that before Matt answers.
Well, I believe Matt.
Oh, wow.
Just kidding.
Wow.
Andrew, did you get that?
It's certainly been interesting.
Good.
You know, it's been a similar situation to when Dr. Norris and I started here several years ago, where there was a lot of progress in the technology realm that needed to be made at that point in terms of infrastructure and beyond. And certainly I think that's the space that the city has found themselves in, and what they're trying to make steps to improve now. So it's been very busy and continues to be very busy as we've been working on modernizing systems and practices, that type of thing. So it's certainly been challenging in that regard.
So do you think the $86,000 is a bargain?
It's a bargain for taxpayers of the City of Waterloo.
Good
How's
answer.
that?
You're helping create bargaining.
So, but do you have a shared help desk?
I'm sorry?
Is the help desk shared?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
it's-
one of
it's
the
located
components
here,
shared,
correct?
yes.
So, I mean, really, have you done an analysis to see where the workload is coming from, and is it does the money cover it, or is the mayor ecstatic because he really is getting a good deal?
In terms of analysis, we do run quarterly reports that is actually part of the agreement that we provide to the city in terms of requests, and then we break the requests down as far as whether the city still employs a staff member, so we record, whether that staff member addressed the request, because that staff member also utilizes our help desk. We try to record all the calls in one system, and then they're assigned to either the city staff member or our staff member. Quite honest, to be quite honest, I don't have numbers in front of us in regards to quantifying the 86,000, and that would be a little, that could be done with quite a bit of time. Obviously, we would have to look at, per diems and divide out by hours, that type of thing. My hunch, Lyle, to be perfectly honest, is that the city is getting a better end of the deal than we are right now. That's one of the reasons why we tried to move forward and kind of leverage that savings out in the middle with that 8.2% increase. I will say, though, from a cost expenditure perspective, both organizations are saving money. The city, even with the increase, is saving money compared to the amount they spent on a manager position, which was eliminated in favor of this agreement. And the staff costs, we hired one additional tech as part of this agreement, and then also adjusted some staff salaries, and that is more than offset by the money coming in. So both organizations, from an expenditure perspective, are saving money. Right now, still, the savings is probably still balanced in the city's favor. Good news is, for the City of Waterloo, it's all taxpayer money. in both directions. So both organizations are saving, and in the end, taxpayers are saving.
And Matt,
Thank
for
you.
you personally, does it get overwhelming doing both? Or?
There's definitely been times where I've felt a bit overwhelmed, to be honest.
Okay.
I hope that in another year that the light will be kind of at the end of the tunnel as we've kind of tackled some major projects on the city perspective. This right now, I am drowning a little bit, and a few of my staff are drowning a little bit as we're moving forward with a new phone system and a new network with the city, because the network has to be installed to support a new modern phone system similar to what the district has, just a different vendor. So that's a huge project, which is definitely taking quite a bit of staff time to move forward. Once we get some of those pieces tackled, and we've already kind of tackled some other modernization pieces, I hope we'll start to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel and be at a similar position, that we found ourselves a few years after Dr. Norris and I started, as far as tackling the big needs and then moving on to addressing, some of the more moderate needs or maintenance mode, that type of thing. So.
Well, Matt, thank you for all the work you're doing on it, and your staff, and Dr. Norris as well. This is the one item that I think there has been. It's good to hear that everything I've heard is that it is beneficial to both sides, and there's been a lot of efficiencies there. So thank you. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried. The next item on our agenda is Exhibit N. It's on page 55, and this is for the East High School chimney project. It's for a contract to remove part of the chimney at East High that is in very bad shape. And this is Exhibit N on page 55. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the recommendation from Structure Architects to accept the quote from Carl Schuler Masonry for the East High School chimney project in the amount of $26,500.
Move to approve.
Thank you. In a second?
Second.
Okay. And discussion, and just on the Facilities Committee, we looked at pictures. We've dealt with this for the last couple months. It was discovered during an inspection, I think.
Mhm.
The chimney, which is, forget which part of, the original part of the East High building.
It
but-
is, right.
And it was, cracked down the center?
There was cracks and lots of water, freezing
Yes.
fall, water damage, things
Okay.
like that.
So, you see, the low bid here was taken, that this was a safety issue that needed to be addressed quickly.
There's quite a variance to those bids. Was there be a reason for that?
The question was asked, and it was the response was that it's probably because the low bid has a boom
Crane.
truck or a crane.
Crane.
The other one would probably have to rent it.
It's
And that was speculation, but
It's
that-
a very specialized, in other words, the reach is such that there aren't too many around, and this
yeah, you don't just walk
contractor
up there with a sledgehammer.
happened to have the one
Yeah.
that could do
Yeah.
the reach, so that's at least the,
Yeah, I thought.
Was J&J local? I know the one that won out.
That I don't know. They're local, yeah. Schuler.
Mike and I did volunteer that Lyle would go up in the bucket, but
With a sledgehammer and just swing away.
yeah.
Just so there's no fights going on.
So is the need for a taller chimney no longer necessary?
Correct.
too?
They do have to have some height though on it, but
But
nowhere
more
near as what it
efficient
was.
Right.
Heating
Yeah.
system that's
Exactly.
not
Yeah.
necessary. Okay, makes sense then.
Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried. The next item on our agenda, at long last, is because of the legislature approval has happened since our last meeting, is that is our 2013-2014 school budget. This is Exhibit O on page 56. Concerns the property tax and basically all the financial aspects of the district. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education recertify the 2013-2014 budget with the maximum expenditures of $52,212 and an adjusted property tax levy rate of 15.72818 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. A second? Okay, and again, this concerns our the property tax rate. We set the ceiling, if you recall, at $16.20, but fortunately with savings within the district, but then also with legislature approval of the 2+2 allowable growth, allowed us to actually reduce the property tax rate for this year. Michael Coughlin or Dr. Norris, want to give some? Michael,
I
Mr.
think
Coughlin,
this
may
is
turn it
just
over to
kind-
you.
This is
Yeah.
just kind of a summary of what we have talked
Mhm.
about several times. But as we were getting into this, it was asked many times when the deadline would be to take action and get it in. And that is this Friday, June 14th. But between the time that we knew and the time of getting ready for the board meeting, there really wasn't time for a finance committee to find people, so we communicated in other ways, and we're really looking at the effects of the new law changes on the formula. Like Mr. Young said, that instead of 4%, we got a 2+2. There was also property tax relief in the sense that the $120 that was raised on the cost per pupil all came out of state aid rather than a combination of state aid and property tax. And that was a little over $200,000 that was shifted to state aid rather than being added to property tax. But there was also a reduction in AEA support, which was all state aid. So it kind of balanced itself out within the formula. But in our sense, the action that was taken before is we didn't know what that was going to be. So it was set a little higher than we expected at 1620, and then this is the adjustment back to reacting to all of these law changes. And basically what it kind of bottom line is the tax rate last year was $15.80, and that 200,000 that was shifted from property tax to state aid was really worth about 7.5 cents. So that's where we went from 1580 down to 1573. So I gave you two exhibits just to look at that just show it in detail of what we had in 12-13 for the current school year, and then what we had published at 3% in the middle column, and then what we are recommending as the final rate of 1572 for next year's budget. And the expenditures that were listed there is the same that was published before that. That amount did not change.
So our last action, just make sure I'm reading this right. Our last action, when we said it and said this will be a maximum, but we're going to lower it if we can, that was at 16.20.
Correct.
And so we followed through on the lowering if we can by lowering it from 16.2 to 15.72. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, looking at this, it's good news, it's a relief, and I know it's been a lot of work, both within the district, but then also in the legislature. So many things came together at the very end of the year with the education reform and then the school funding. They were both tied together, so I think it's a good thing.
And I just want to thank the board for taking arguably a courageous political step early to publish higher when everybody hates the thought of taxes going up, but with the idea that we could say to the taxpayers, trust us and we'll follow through with this. But at that point, I would submit we really didn't have a choice of a viable fiscal option at that time other than to publish at higher rates. So thank the board for doing that.
But this just adds to the track record of actually lowering it.
Exactly.
We've done that now like 4 years in a row.
I think 6. Yeah.
6 years.
6, yeah. Yes.
Who's
I'm
counting?
keeping track. But and also another point of good news with their action is they did certify 4% for the 2015 budget. So
Yeah.
we've got something to work with for the following year.
What are we at, about 6,200 or something?
We're at 6,001 in this year, so it'll go to 6121
Okay.
with the 2%, and there'll be 4% on top of that for 15.
Well, Dr. Norris and Mr. Coughlin, thank you for all your work on this. Okay, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. The next item on our agenda is, it's another financial aspect, and this is more of an accounting aspect. It's Exhibit P on page 58. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the transfer of funds, $6,150,000, equal to approximately 5% of the general fund annual expenditures from the committed fund balance to the assigned fund balance as defined by GASB 54. Get that motion on the table.
Move to approve.
Thank you. In a second? Second. All right, and this deals with the GASB is the Government Accounting Standard Board, kind of the national, I guess, governing body for accounting in governments. Mr. Coughlin, if you could just give us a brief summary of this item.
For many years prior to this action of GASB 54, we basically had designated and undesignated funds. If there was a special project, something going on that we wanted to set money aside, that was designated, everything else wasn't. But as we got into this new law, it turned it into 5 different categories. And really 2 of them were pretty close in definition, committed and assigned. And under my best direction at the time, I recommended and we, by board action, because that's part of the committed fund balance category, that we set aside that amount to just say, this is in reflection to the 5% that we want to keep as a minimum for balances, fund balance. But unknown until a little while after, as we got more rules and explanation of it, the state did not take assigned fund balance as part of our solvency ratio. But they would take, as part of the committed, but they would take assigned as part of the solvency ratio. So they're really basically the same type of fund. Let me just give you an example of what really is a committed amount. When we took interim premiums for our health insurance, the board said we're going to accept a lower premium with the savings designated, I'm using an old term, designated to be used for future health insurance plans. So if we save money in the premiums and we're able to keep that money based on our usage, which we were for 12, we put about $1 million into that account to be used specifically for health insurance programs in the future. That would be committed specifically to that. The $6,150,000, which is to use for budget and cash flow, that was more of an assigned, not entirely specific purpose. So that's my recommendation through our auditors of saying it really fits more to that category by definition. But that's something that has to be taken out by board action because it was put in by board action. So it is an accounting change, it is an accounting transfer into a different type of fund balance. The purpose is basically the same. It just requires a different set of review when that money is being used.
So, again, essentially, it's not changing the amount of money we have, it's just simply
The same amount of
accounting
money
for
will
it.
go into assigned
Accounting
fund
for it in
balance.
just a different way.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. Thank you, Michael. The next item on our agenda is for approval of some policy changes, and it's 2 policies. This is for second reading. This is Exhibit Q on page 61. The recommended motion is that the board approve the following policies: nepotism and multicultural and gender fair education. They're numbers 401.3 and 602.7 respectively. Get that motion on the table?
Move to approve.
May I give it a second?
Second.
Okay. And again, this is up for second reading. I don't think there have been any changes to the policy since our first reading, but are there questions? And again, it was just some tweaks basically to both policies. All right, if no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And the chair votes aye, motion carried. That concludes the action items. We still have one more item on our agenda, which is for monthly financial information. It's Exhibit R on page 67. This is for information only. But Mr. Coughlin, we'll turn it back to you to go through this. It starts on page 67 of our board packet.
The exhibits that you have for me is a little abbreviated from what you normally see, because we pushed these out a little faster than what we normally do, getting it to the first board meeting in June. But the early board meeting in June, and I wanted to at least show you kind of where things were at, rather than having to wait till July to see what June or May was and so on. And again, I want to remind you that based on the accrual basis of revenues and expenditures, that we really have 3 months almost to record yet in the year, June, and then the expenditures for July and August, paying out the majority of the teacher salaries. So on page 68 is a review of the revenue and expenditures to this date. We have 104 million in revenues, 98 or 99 million in expenditures, expecting to come very close to the budgeted figures and the authorized fund balance that we are targeting around $10 million. On page 69 is a breakout of the expenditures for the general fund based on their function, and then showing salaries, benefits, and so on for each one of the groups, as compared to the budget in the middle table and last year's year-to-date for June numbers as far as a comparison. On page 70 is the other major funds, the management fund, PEPAL fund, and the capital projects fund, showing where we are currently at with revenues and expenditures in each one of those categories. And on 71 is the update of the bank account balances in each of the fund, and as we getting close to the end of the year, you can see that we are relatively close to last year's activity in each one of these major funds as far as cash flow. But we will have more as we address the next finance committee meeting, an updated amount of where we are as we close June, and we actually write all the checks for July and August payroll before the end of June, so a lot of things happen in the business office between now and June 30th. So I will update you as we are able to get those numbers.
It is sort of interesting, the student transportation is at 136.1% of the total, the only one that's, higher than.
Well, part of that procedure is that we charge transportation to the regular 2700 function all year, and as we get to the end of the year, there's other places that gets divided into. Special ed, that number will probably actually decrease on that line item by the time we close June.
Gotcha. Any further questions or discussion? Mr. Coughlin, thank you again for all your work on. I know it's a busy time. As you were just saying with June, there's no rest for the weary. It seems like there's always something to be done.
It's actually all HR's fault. So
Of course, of course. That includes the agenda items we have. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Norris for the superintendent's report.
Congratulations to our three Gold Star teachers, Ryan Haynes at Becker, Jake Youngkin at Carver, and Nicole Schrage at East. They have made us proud many times in the classroom and did so at the Gold Star ceremony, and so we're real proud of those folks. I attended a IASB Superintendent's Advisory meeting in Des Moines on the 20th, and that's superintendents from all different size districts get together and work with the School Board Association on meeting all of our needs. And I've just been impressed with the new leadership. I'm seeing a more aggressive, proactive stance on legislation and things like that. They've got some software they're rolling out to business managers that will allow us to give you even better reports. And so I just am high on the way they're trying to be a value add. Our three graduation ceremonies, I think, went particularly well. The new location for Expo at Central Middle was a good place. It ended up working good. I don't know if you remember reading it, but congratulations to Kittrell for becoming a Blue Zone school. And there's several other schools looking at it, and we should have some other announcements coming up.
Did Orange make it?
Pardon me?
Did Orange make it too?
Orange made it first.
It's already there.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
And now Kittrell's the most recent one. And then Sharon and I have been meeting with the Waterloo Police Department to take a look at our responses going forward in if we, God forbid, have an active shooter at one of our buildings. There's almost a sea change taking place out there with regard to people's attitudes about lockdown versus having certain people get out while you can. And so before we start anything that dramatic, we want to make sure we've got communication processes in place, that we've coached our teachers, that we just want to make sure that when you move away from something that has been part of our culture for years, that we do it right. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Norris. And now information from board members. Start with Lyle Schmidt.
Just a note in case anyone out there has a high definition TV that what happened to me is I hit a slick spot while riding my bicycle on one of the trails and took a tumble, so that's what happened.
But you're healing up, and it's
Yeah.
it
It looks
getting
worse than
better.
it
Yes.
feels.
Thank you, Lyle. And Mike Kinchy.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Bernice Richard.
Hope all of the teachers are getting rested up
Yes.
for the next school year.
Yes.
There you go.
Exactly. Thank you, Bernice. And Sue Flynn.
Well, I'll be windy tonight. I first of all want to thank all of our teachers with our test scores. I just think that is just a huge positive when I heard that and saw the scores, and your hard work is beginning to pay off. It's obviously not where we want to be, but we're made gains, huge strides, and so all instructional staff and at the district level and in the classrooms, I mean, that is just a huge positive, and I was so excited when those scores were released, and I think that's great job, students, instructors, district staff. Also, I
We
wanted...
will have, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I just, for the press' sake, we will be having a workshop with the board to
Gotcha.
share some of
Yep.
the results a little bit later.
Good, good. And then also, I just, with the budgeting, and I just wanted to thank our finance department and Dr. Norris for the leadership of keeping us on task. And again, I just felt it very effective to have the reduction levels that you gave us. And just, I would like to, some point going forward, see where we're at in those reduction levels and where we kind of ended up with the 2% increase, and I just think that's excellent to be proactive rather than reactive. So thank you.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you, Sue. And just to follow up on that, I thank everybody for a good school year. It's, man, it flies by, but now the summer will fly by, I know as well. But yes, exactly. Our next board meeting, we're on the summer schedule, so our next board meeting will be at 5:00 p.m. on Monday, July 8th. So 4 weeks from now, again here at 5 p.m. here in the board meeting. If there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, second, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. We're adjourned. Thank you all.